My own son kicked me out of my home. There was no argument, no misunderstanding, just one short, frozen sentence. "Leave, Mom. You're not welcome here anymore." The sound of the door slamming behind me still echoes, a dry crack that cut deeper than any word. I stood on the porch with a small suitcase and a crushed heart. Inside, the voices carried on. Laughter, the clinking of silverware. And I, outside, learned what it means to die a little while still breathing. The rain started softly, almost respectfully. It ran down my face, mixing with tears. The house that once sheltered me had become a border, and the son I'd raised with love now looked at me like a burden. But as I walked alone down the street, a memory pierced through. Marcus, still little, calling me from the window. "Mom, look at me." I did back then. I always did. And now, no one looked back. They called me a failure. And for a while, I believed them. But life has a way of waiting for the right time to return what's ours. 12 years later, they knocked on the door of my mansion. And I, the woman who had been thrown out, looked into the eyes of those who once denied me a home. Only this time, I decided, no one closes doors on me again. If you've ever been discarded, if they've ever called you a burden, stay with me until the end of this story. It's not just mine. It's all of ours. And subscribe to the channel, because here, every pain finds its justice. Before that night, I thought I knew what the word family meant. I'd wake up before sunrise, and the smell of fresh coffee would fill the kitchen. I loved watching that golden light slip through the curtains, the kettle hissing, warm bread on the table. It was the same ritual from when Marcus was a little boy. The same kid who ran through the living room with his shoelaces untied, calling me mommy with a joy big enough to hold the whole world. But time changes the tone of voices. And with time, mommy turned into just mom. Later, it turned into silence. After my husband died, I thought Marcus and Tanya would stay close. They insisted I move in with them, said it would be better for me. And I, heart full of hope, said yes. I brought my memories, old photos, my recipe books, and the rosary I kept from the funeral. For the first few months, it felt right. I cooked, did laundry, helped with the kids. Tanya said, "Thank you." But over time, the smile faded. Marcus changed too. His eyes stopped seeking mine, and our dinner table talk grew short. One night, I heard laughter from their room, and then a whispered line I never forgot. "She needs to understand, this is our house now." That sentence cut deeper than any shout. I stood in the hallway with a tray in my hands, feeling the weight of being a guest in my own son's life. The days that followed were full of small silences. Glasses left unwashed, doors closing softly. A kind of cold you don't explain, you just feel. But what hurt most was the look from the children, my grandkids. At first, they hugged me. Then they started to avoid me, as if they'd learned that loving me was an embarrassment. I tried to tell myself it was a phase. But deep down, I already knew. When love starts to die, it doesn't scream. It goes quiet. And their silence was the warning that something far worse was coming. It was an ordinary night, or so it seemed. The smell of simmering beans filled the kitchen, and I stirred the pot absent-mindedly, humming an old tune my mother used to sing. That song always calmed me. The clock read 7:30 when the living room door opened. Marcus came in first. His face tense, his eyes cold. Behind him, Tanya, arms crossed. "Mom, we need to talk." His tone froze me before the next words even came. I turned off the stove, wiped my hands on my apron. "What is it, son?" He took a deep breath. "We think it's best if you find another place to stay." For a moment, I thought I hadn't heard him right. I looked at him, confused. "Another place? But Marcus, this is my home too. I cook, help with the kids, wash your clothes." Tanya cut in without looking at me. "That's exactly it. You do too much. The house feels crowded. The pot behind me bubbled over. The smell of burning rose, thick, bitter." I turned off the stove, my heart racing. "Marcus, you want me to leave?" "Just until we get reorganized," he said, looking down. It's temporary, that word. The same one he used later when he tried to come back. Temporary. As if a mother's love had an expiration date. "You're kicking me out of your life, Marcus?" I asked, my voice shaking. He closed his eyes. I'm trying to do what's best for everyone. I looked around. The table I bought myself, the curtains I sewed with my own hands, the whole house smelled of my life, and still, I was the intruder. Tanya placed a suitcase on the chair, already packed. We've arranged your things. For a moment, time stopped. The distant sound of the TV, the children's laughter in their room, the wind tapping the window. Everything stayed the same, except me. I reached for the blue scarf in my pocket, the same one I wore at my husband's funeral, the same one Marcus, as a child, used to hold when he was scared of the dark. I looked at him. Son, I gave you everything. Even the air I breathed was to protect you. He turned away. I know, Mom. But love changes. No, I thought. Love doesn't change. People do. I picked up the suitcase, walked slowly to the door. Each step echoed like a sentence being read aloud. When the door closed behind me, the sound was crueler than a slap. Outside, the rain had started. I walked down the street with the scarf around my neck, the suitcase in my hand, and my heart torn open. The lights of the houses reflected in puddles, and I saw myself in them, broken in pieces. With each step, memories returned. Marcus running in the yard, asking for help with homework. The smell of the birthday cake I used to bake for him. The first time he called me his hero. Now the hero had become the villain. In the middle of the street, I stopped. Rain soaking everything, the scarf heavy, and an old voice inside me whispered, "You've survived worse, Evelyn. You'll survive this too." That was the night I lost a house, but without knowing, it was also the night I began building another one, inside myself. The first few days were a blur. I remember the tiny room at the boarding house, a narrow bed, rough sheets, and a window that creaked with the wind. The sounds of the street seemed louder there, as if the world insisted on reminding me I was alone. In the mornings, I woke up at the same time as always. Out of habit, I made coffee, but the smell, once a symbol of life, was now just memory. I ran my hand across the table, feeling the absence of voices. Loneliness has a scent, a sound, a weight. It's the sound of a kettle boiling for no one. It's the weight of a suitcase left open in the corner. It's the smell of laundry soap mixed with dried tears. On the first Sunday, I put on the blue scarf and went for a walk. On the way, I passed by a bakery. The neighbors whispered, "Her son's doing so well. How could he leave her like that?" I held the bread and my dignity in the same hand. Their stares hurt worse than the cold. In the following days, I tried calling Marcus. No answer. I left a short message. "I'm fine. Just wanted to know about the kids." He never called back. Time began to drag. Hours moved slow, heavy. At night, I'd lie down and wait for sleep, but it came late, only when exhaustion finally defeated the longing. The silence seemed to breathe inside the room, as if it were alive. One day, an anonymous letter slipped under the door. I thought it was a mistake, but my name was written on it. "There's an elderly lady in need of a caregiver. The pay's small, but room is included." The note was simple, unsigned. I stared at those words for minutes. It wasn't much, but it was something. And in that moment, something inside me whispered, "A little can be the start of everything." The next morning, I called the number on the note. On the other end, a calm voice, full of kindness. "This is Alma Jefferson. They told me you have good hands for caring." Her voice crossed the emptiness and silenced everything inside me. There was tenderness. There was fate. I didn't know who she was, but I felt as if she were calling from within. That night, I folded my clothes carefully, tucked the scarf into the suitcase, and sat at the edge of the bed. For the first time since being kicked out, I didn't cry. The fear was still there, but the despair wasn't. It felt as though life was finally reaching out its hand. And when I left the boarding house the next morning, the sun greeted me differently, as if saying, "Now it's you who decides where to go." The street was quiet, lined with old magnolias and the lazy sound of crickets. With every step, I smelled the sweet mix of flowers and the fear of the unknown. When I reached the gate, the iron sign read, "Jefferson House." The gate was slightly open, as if it had been waiting for me. I clutched the blue scarf around my neck and took a deep breath. The house was large, with wide windows and a porch wrapped in vines, the kind of place that carried stories in its walls. I knocked twice, and before I could think of backing away, a soft voice answered, "Come in, Evelyn. The door's open." I stepped inside slowly. The scent of old wood and lavender surrounded me. Up on the staircase stood Mrs. Alma Jefferson, small, elegant, her eyes cutting through time. "So it's you," she said with a smile. "Finally, the hands that came to care have arrived." There was something in her tone, a quiet recognition, as if she'd known me before. She showed me around, the garden with a swing, the kitchen with white tiles, the airy room that would be mine. In every corner, framed portraits of women, mothers, daughters, sisters, all with that same steadfast gaze. "Do you like silence, Evelyn?" she asked, watching me. "I do. Silence listens to me." She smiled. "Then you'll fit in just fine here." The days that followed passed peacefully. I cleaned, cooked, organized her medicine. But somehow, I felt cared for too. The house gave back something I hadn't realized I'd lost: belonging. One afternoon, while I was changing the flowers in the living room, Mrs. Jefferson called me to the porch. "Sit with me, Evelyn. It's been a while since I've spoken with someone who knows what it means to stand after so many falls." I sat beside her. The wind played with the curtains, and for a moment, the world seemed suspended. "You talk as if you know my life," I said, half joking. "I don't know, but I recognize it," she replied. "Pain has its own accent." We sat in silence. Above us, the clouds moved slowly, like old memories drifting by. She told me she had a trusted lawyer, Samuel Grant, who handled her papers and finances. "A fair man," she said. "He likes things to be in order before time confuses them." The following week, he showed up. Tall, calm voice, steady gaze. He greeted me with uncommon respect. "You must be Evelyn Brooks?" "I am. Mrs. Jefferson said your hands hold the strength of someone who's lost much and still hasn't hardened." I smiled shyly. I think she exaggerates. I think she doesn't. As he and Alma discussed some documents, I overheard a sentence that stayed with me. "We need to review the will, Mrs. Jefferson. It's best to have everything clear." The word will cut through the air and gave me chills. I didn't know why. Maybe because for the first time in a long while, I was inside a house where the future was being discussed, and I was part of it, even if I didn't know how. That night, when I turned off the lights, the house felt alive. The wind tapped the windows like someone whispering secrets. And inside me, for the first time since being cast out, something settled. I didn't know it yet, but that home was about to give me back far more than a roof. It was about to give me back my name. Samuel Grant wasn't like any man I'd ever met. He spoke softly, moved patiently, and carried a presence that filled the room without ever raising his voice. When he spoke, he looked you in the eye. And for someone who had been silenced, that was almost a miracle. At first, he came only to handle Mrs. Jefferson's paperwork. But little by little, our conversations grew longer. We talked about music, the neighborhood, the kinds of silences life forces upon us. There was something in him that wasn't curiosity. It was respect. One morning, while I served tea, he asked, "And you, Evelyn, have you ever thought about what you want for yourself?" I smiled, unsure how to answer. "I think when you lose everything, you forget how to want." He was quiet for a moment. "Then it's time to remember." That line struck deep. It felt like a firm hand pushing open a door I'd left barely ajar inside me. One rainy afternoon, Samuel called me into the office to sign a few of Mrs. Jefferson's routine papers. I explained I didn't know much about legal matters. He smiled. "Understanding is what protects us. Ignorance is what keeps us captive." He took a blank sheet of paper and began to explain with simple words. What is property? What is a right? What is legacy? And for the first time, someone was teaching me without making me feel small. As he spoke, I found myself remembering the past. All the times Marcus made decisions without asking me. All the conversations where my voice carried no weight. But there, in that room, every word I said mattered. And the simple act of being heard gave back a piece of the woman I'd forgotten I was. That afternoon, Mrs. Jefferson appeared at the door. "Samuel, this woman is far more intelligent than she thinks." He chuckled. I know. She just needed to realize it. Alma leaned on her cane, looked at me kindly, and said, Evelyn, you have the hands of a caregiver and the eyes of someone who's seen too much. Together, that's power. Use it. The silence that followed was full of meaning. I felt like a lifetime of invisibility had started to melt away. In the following days, Samuel began visiting more often. He brought books, articles, spreadsheets, things that once would have scared me. But now, I read them all, curious. He'd say, knowledge is the one thing no one can take from you. And I wrote it down. Everything. One afternoon, as we sorted through papers, he told me about a case he was handling. A woman lost her inheritance because her name was never on the documents. Her husband registered everything alone. And she couldn't do anything? No, because no one ever taught her what was hers by right. Those words hit deep. That night, I wrote in a notebook, learn so I can never be deceived again. It was the start of my quiet rebuilding. No anger, no haste, just the desire to understand what the world once hid from me. Before leaving, Samuel said, Evelyn, when we learn to name what's ours, no one can steal it. Not your home, not your peace, not your dignity. I watched him cross the garden at sunset, his footsteps blending with the rustling trees. And I thought to myself, maybe it's not too late to start again. Autumn arrived smelling of wet earth and old memories. The magnolias began to lose their petals, and the garden filled with golden leaves. I was sweeping the porch, distracted, when I heard the gate slam. A firm, familiar sound, the kind your body recognizes before your mind does. I looked up. Marcus. For a moment, time froze. The breeze stopped. So did my heart. The same face, but the eyes, tired, hollow. I stood there motionless, broom in hand. Mom, he said, the word trembling, almost a plea. The sound cut through me, 12 years without hearing it. What do you want, Marcus? He looked around, uneasy. I just came to see if you're okay. I smiled faintly. After 12 years, that's what you came to ask? He lowered his eyes. I heard, you work for a lady here. I wanted to see it for myself. Work for a lady. The phrase stung like a thorn. I took a slow breath. I don't work for her, Marcus. I care for her, and she cares for me. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. Before he could answer, the door opened behind me. Mrs. Jefferson appeared, leaning on her cane. Evelyn, dear, the tea's ready. She looked at him, then at me, and understood everything without needing a word. Good afternoon, young man, she said, firm, with that matriarchal air no one dares challenge. Marcus nodded awkwardly. Good afternoon, ma'am. She turned to me. Leave the gate open, Evelyn. The air in here is lighter. Marcus seemed to shrink. Mom, I just want you to know I'm sorry. Those words fell like rain on cracked ground. Too late to make anything bloom. Feeling sorry doesn't erase things, Marcus. It's only the first step toward understanding. He took a step closer. Can I come in? I looked into his eyes. Not today. Why not? Because some days, my peace is worth more than the forgiveness someone's asking for. He swallowed hard. Behind him, the wind rattled the open gate, as if time itself was breathing between us. Before leaving, he murmured, You've changed. No, I just remembered who I was before I forgot. We stared at each other for a moment, mother and son, separated not by distance, but by choices. Then he turned and walked away. When the gate closed, the sound didn't hurt me anymore. It was just the sound of the past, finally leaving. Mrs. Jefferson rested her hand on my shoulder. Does that man still have power over you? Only if I let him. And I don't anymore. I went inside, heart light. The same gate that once expelled me now served to protect me. And I realized something. When a woman learns the value of her own peace, no one commands her again. Mrs. Jefferson was growing frail. Her body was asking for rest, but her eyes still carried life. There was something in them, a secret held between tenderness and regret. In the last few weeks, she slept more, spoke less. But every time I passed nearby, she squeezed my hand and whispered, Everything is where it should be, Evelyn. I didn't understand. One gray afternoon, Samuel arrived carrying a leather folder, that serious air that meant something important. "Mrs. Jefferson asked me to come," he said calmly. "She wants to update her will." My heart sped up, but I stayed silent. While they talked in the office, I arranged flowers in the living room, trying not to listen, until I did. Her voice, weak but firm. "Samuel, include the name Evelyn Brooks. I want her to have the house." The vase almost slipped from my hands. I stepped back quietly. That sentence thundered inside me. The house. For me? Later, when he left, I went up to her room. She was sitting by the window, bathed in the golden light of sunset. "You didn't have to do that," I said softly. "I came to help, not to receive anything." She looked at me with a calm smile. "Do you think this house chose you by chance?" I said nothing. "Evelyn, sometimes what blood separates, destiny brings back together." She asked me to open a drawer. Inside was a small metal box. "When I'm gone, this will be yours," she said, her voice trembling. "But don't open it before the time is right." 2 days later, she passed away. Peacefully, in her sleep. The room smelled of lavender and farewell. The pain I felt wasn't just for losing a friend. It was as if a piece of me had gone quiet with her. Samuel came that same day. He opened his folder and handed me an envelope. My name on it. For Evelyn Brooks. My hands shook as he said, "Mrs. Jefferson left this house to you. Legally. Fully yours." I couldn't speak. It was too much to take in. The woman who had taken me in had left me everything. "Why?" I asked. Samuel took a slow breath. She said, "You were the only one who understood the value of silence." That night, I wandered through the house. Every wall felt alive. I touched the old portraits, the golden frames, the dusty piano. Everything seemed to watch me. Then I remembered the box. I opened it slowly. Inside were letters, dozens of them, tied together with a faded blue ribbon. I picked up the first one. "Dear Marjorie Brooks." My heart stopped. Marjorie Brooks. That was my mother's name. The words trembled across the yellowed lines. "Forgive me for not staying. I was forced away. They promised I'd never see you or the child again. But I kept your name. And if God allows, I'll find the blood they took from me." I sat on the bed, heart pounding. I read more letters, all carrying the same tone: longing, guilt, love cut short. And in one of them, the name that shattered and rebuilt me. My dear niece, Evelyn. Tears came without warning. The woman who took me in without knowing me was my mother's sister, my aunt. The blood the world tried to erase had been waiting for me in that house all along. Samuel appeared at the door, silent. "I suspected," he said softly. "She discovered who you were months ago but wanted time to reveal it herself." I closed my eyes. The breeze through the window carried the scent of magnolias. Everything made sense. I wasn't a guest of fate. I was fate coming home. That night, I knelt in her room and prayed. Not to ask, to thank. Because finally, the love I was denied in childhood had found me in old age. And for the first time, I realized the inheritance wasn't the house. It was belonging. The metal box stayed open on the table all morning. The smell of old paper filled the room, mingling with the soft lavender scent that still seemed to come from Alma's bedroom. I sat before the letters as if before an altar. Each envelope was a doorway. Each doorway, a return. I began with the oldest ones. Postmarks from the 1960s, faded stamps, the steady handwriting of A. Jefferson. "Dear Marjorie Brooks, I haven't given up. They swore they'd keep me away if I insisted, but no promise can silence the name I gave you, my sister." I read it aloud, as if the house itself needed to hear it. Some letters had Savannah addresses that still existed. Others contained newspaper clippings, little notes with small sums, sent quietly so as not to draw attention. Fear had its method. So did courage. I called Samuel. He arrived with his usual care, took off his glasses, spread the letters across the table, and began numbering them in pencil, building a timeline. Here, Evelyn, the first attempt to reconnect. Here, the threat of scandal. Here, her decision to protect from afar. I stayed silent. This wasn't just history. It was blood learning to survive in the gaps. At the bottom of the box, I found photographs. 2 young women side by side laughing. On the back, a note in blue ink, before they tore us apart. My chest burned. On the 3rd photo, a small paper clip held a message. If one day this child ever hears of me, tell her I prayed for her name. The name wasn't written, but my hands trembled anyway. Samuel touched my hand gently. These documents tell a story of forced separation, he said. They prove Alma tried. The silence wasn't her choice. I nodded, discreetly wiping tears. He opened a new folder. Now, the practical part. We'll register, catalog, and digitize everything. Not for vanity, for justice. Memory, when documented, becomes a right. I spent the afternoon wearing thin gloves, turning each page carefully. In every letter, I marked a line and copied it into a notebook. Love that couldn't stay learned to wait. The shame the world imposes doesn't erase who we are. If I can't be there, let my papers remain. I realized Alma had built, on paper, a path meant for me long before I arrived. In her wardrobe, I found a small, worn journal. Short entries, dated. Today she smiled. Today she slept without crying. Today the house recognized her. They were about me, no name, but about me. I cried again, not from pity, but from recognition. In the following days, I turned the living room into an archive. Labels, folders, plastic sleeves. Samuel brought a scanner, teaching me how to use it. We need cloud backups and physical copies, he said. Truth well kept doesn't vanish. While I fed the scanner, he built an inventory: house, furniture, accounts, insurance. I asked questions, he answered, and the ignorance that had once been my prison began to lose its walls. One afternoon, Claudine showed up with cornbread and curiosity. What's all this, Evie? I took a breath, adjusting my scarf. It's turning into understanding. She laughed. And does understanding pay bills? It pays for living, I said. We spent that afternoon, me, Claudine, and Nora, who'd come to help, reading excerpts aloud. In every sentence, a whole woman stood tall. It was impossible not to see ourselves in them. Samuel suggested another step. Beyond the inventory, you should secure your legal standing as heir. No loopholes. And one more thing. Financial education. I straightened my back. Education? He opened a spreadsheet. Cash flow, emergency fund, maintenance, taxes. The house is an asset, but it's also a responsibility. You need to understand what keeps it standing. I paused, breathing in a new kind of dignity. I want to learn everything. Lessons began the next morning. Papers, numbers, examples. Every concept explained in simple language. Incoming is what comes in. Outgoing is what goes out. Shelter costs. Legacy requires care. Nora took notes beside me, excited. At the end of each session, Samuel repeated, "To name is to own." I went to bed with that phrase echoing, feeling my name settle, not just in documents, but inside myself. At night, the house seemed to talk. Windows creaked, floors sighed, curtains stirred. I walked barefoot, touching door frames, running my hands along the portraits. Silently, I promised, "Nothing denied to you will be denied to me, and nothing that's mine will ever be used to silence another woman." On Sunday, I went to the cemetery with flowers for Alma. Thank you for giving back the part of me I didn't know was missing. I let the scarf brush the cold stone. The wind blew softly, an answer. On the way back, I bought a new notebook. On the first page, I wrote, "Blue House, memory, rights, and peace." The next week, we formally registered the transfer, notarized copies, updated records. Samuel oversaw every step. When the last signature dried, he said quietly, "Now the story is protected, by law and by truth." I returned home before sunset. Light poured through the walls like warm water. I sat on the porch with the notebook in my lap. The pain of being cast out still existed, but it had shrunk. In its place grew a certainty. My life was no longer a dark hallway waiting for a door to open. I was already inside. I closed my eyes and heard the same voice that had guided me since that first night. Use this house to live, not to hide. I opened them with a simple, complete plan, to turn this inheritance into a path. What had been given to me in secret, I would multiply in voice. Time inside the Jefferson house found a new rhythm. The pain still came sometimes, but it arrived politely, knocking before entering. I spent my days surrounded by papers, notebooks, and plants, trying to figure out what to do with so much silence now filled with meaning. That's when Nora, who'd been helping with the digital archives, came to me with an idea. "Mrs. Brooks, do you know how many women in this neighborhood are going through what you did?" "How many?" "More than you think. Some kicked out by their children, others traded for silence." Her words echoed in my head for hours. That night, I sat at the table and wrote in my notebook, what if the Blue House were a shelter? Not just walls but direction? I showed Samuel the next day. He read it slowly. "Evelyn, that's a social project, a real initiative. I don't want charity, Samuel. I want structure. I want every woman who walks through that gate to leave knowing what belongs to her by right." He smiled, the kind of smile only believers have. "Then we'll do this right." And that was how the Blue House Project was born. In the following days, Samuel brought sample bylaws, registration forms, and mission statements. Nora, full of youthful energy, designed flyers and posted them in community groups. I worked on the words autonomy, respect, belonging. The first meeting was on a Saturday morning. 6 women came, each carrying a different kind of pain, but all speaking in the same tone, the voice of someone who's spent a lifetime apologizing for existing. I welcomed them on the porch with coffee, a simple cake, and a racing heart. "We're not victims," I began. "We're survivors who've learned to stand in our own names." One of them, Clarice, interrupted, crying, "I don't even know where to start." "Start by staying," I said. "The rest we'll learn together." For weeks we met in the backyard. We talked about money, rights, silence, and fear. Samuel came once a week to give small lectures, and Nora organized everything with endless energy and faith. One day, Claudine, an old neighbor with a sharp tongue and a good heart, showed up carrying vegetables and curiosity. "What's all this, Evie?" "Lessons on starting over. Want to join?" She stayed and never left. Over time, the group grew. Women came from nearby neighborhoods, then from other towns. The Blue House Gate became a symbol of refuge. The sound of women's voices began to fill every room like new music. Samuel handled the legal side. "Evelyn, we need to formalize everything. Register as a nonprofit, open a bank account, get a tax ID. I want full transparency. I don't want people calling it charity. I want them to know it's work." One afternoon, while we sorted documents, he said, "Do you know what impresses me most about you?" "What's that?" "You've learned to turn loss into a tool." I smiled, adjusting my scarf. I learned not to let what hurt me die for nothing. That night was special. The women prepared a shared dinner. There was music, laughter, the smell of food, and something new, the feeling of shared belonging. As I looked around, I thought of Alma and Marjorie, of what they'd left behind and what I was now multiplying. Then I heard footsteps behind me. It was Samuel. "Evelyn, do you know what I see here?" "What?" "An inheritance that became hope." We stood in silence. The wind stirred the blue scarf tied to the porch rail, as if Alma herself were there, approving everything. The next week, Nora brought news. "A local journalist wants to cover the project, says it's inspiring." My first instinct was to refuse. "I don't want to be seen." She insisted, "It's not about being seen, it's about inspiring." I agreed. The article came out under the title, "Woman Turns Inherited Home into Empowerment Center for Victims of Abandonment." Messages began pouring in. Women from other towns, sharing their stories, asking for advice, wanting to visit. And that's when I realized I was no longer just a survivor. I was a reference point. That night, I wrote a line in my notebook. "When the world throws you out, build a gate with your name on it." And I slept in peace. Not because the past was gone, but because, finally, it served a purpose. The Blue House Project no longer fit on the porch. We had a meeting room now, a bulletin board, a packed schedule of activities. The sound of women talking filled the yard, the kind of noise that heals. Local magazines started showing up. "Stories of resilience," the headlines said. One of them even printed a photo of me smiling, the blue scarf around my neck, and soon after, the whispers began. "Did you see? That's Evelyn Brooks, the one her own son threw out." They say she gives lectures now. I pretended not to hear. But the news reached exactly who I wished it hadn't. One humid afternoon, Claudine ran up to me. "Evie, there's someone outside." I went to the gate. Marcus. Behind him, Tanya and 2 teenagers, my grandsons. For a moment, everything disappeared. The sound of cicadas, the wind, even my heartbeat. Time stopped and the old scene replayed completely. The suitcase, the rain, the door closing. "What do you want?" I asked, steady. Marcus swallowed hard. "Mom, we lost everything." Tanya added, "The company went bankrupt. The bank took the house." He sighed. "We just need some time." Silence. The boys looked at me with those same childhood eyes. My chest ached, but my voice stayed calm. "Come in." They entered. The gate closed behind them, and the past came in too. The women of the project stopped talking. Samuel looked at me from across the yard, reading the scene. Nora whispered, "Is everything okay?" "It will be, but it'll be different." I set up a room for the boys. Tanya and Marcus stayed in the attic. The first nights were quiet, the kind of quiet that carries both guilt and calculation. One morning, Samuel arrived with papers. When he saw me, he spoke softly. "He's trying to get credit using your address." I stared at him, startled. "What?" Marcus listed Blue House as his family residence on a commercial form. It could cause legal problems. The floor seemed to spin. "He never learns," I murmured. That night, I called Marcus to the living room. On the table, I laid the document Samuel had shown me. "Care to explain this?" He looked away. "It was just to speed up a process. It's no big deal. Lies come with signatures. Yours is right here." He tried to laugh. "You're overreacting." "Marcus, I've learned the price of silence. I'm not paying it twice." Tanya rushed in, nervous. "Evelyn, he's just trying to start over." I tried that too, and I had to start alone. She crossed her arms, irritated. "You act like you're above us." "This house, this project, it's gone to your head." I smiled calmly. "It hasn't gone to my head. It's just lifted me up." Her expression hardened. Marcus stepped forward. "Please, Mom, don't turn this into a war." "I don't have to. You already started one." He stood, frustrated. "I'm your son, and I'm the woman you threw out, the one who now reads every contract before signing." Silence. The same kind that once hurt me. Now it protected me. Samuel appeared in the doorway, voice firm. "Mr. Brooks, any misuse of the Blue House name is grounds for legal action." Marcus went pale. "Legal action?" "Justice," I said, a word you still haven't learned to use properly. Tanya grabbed the keys and stormed out. Marcus stayed, breathing heavily. "I just wanted a new start." "A restart isn't a return, Marcus. It's a correction." He left quietly. His footsteps echoed down the hall to the gate. That night, I sat alone in the living room. Moonlight poured through the window, shining on the blue scarf resting on the piano. I picked it up and thought, I don't need to shout. Time speaks for me. But deep down, I already knew. This conflict wasn't over. They hadn't come back out of love. They came back out of interest. And this time, I was ready to fight, calmly. After that conversation with Marcus, the house felt different. It wasn't the warm refuge of the Blue House Project anymore, nor the quiet shelter Alma Jefferson once gave me. Now there was a tension in the air, invisible but unmistakable to anyone who's been betrayed before. I knew I couldn't act out of anger. Anger is loud, but justice is patient. The next morning, I called Samuel. He arrived with his usual calm leather folder in hand. "I figured you'd call, Evelyn. I want to protect myself. Legally." He nodded. "Then let's begin." He spread documents across the table. Property records, contracts, certificates. "We'll update the ownership of the house, the project, and the brand. All in your name, fully notarized. No family member, no moral partners. I want it foolproof. It will be." While he spoke, Nora and Claudine came in, curious. I explained. "The Blue House has to be more than a home. It needs to be an institution." Claudine smiled. "A symbol. And a shield," I added. For days, we worked nonstop. The women kept running the activities, but there was a new sense of purpose in the air. Each signature, each certified copy, each registration was another brick in the invisible wall I was building against my past. Samuel handled the legal filings. Nora organized the digital records. I reviewed everything, line by line. There was no room left for naivety. One afternoon, while I checked the folders, there was a knock on the door. Marcus. He looked tired, but carried the same manipulative tone. "Mom, I need you to sign this. Just something to help clear things up with the bank." He handed me an envelope. I opened it and read slowly. Hidden among the clauses and numbers was a single line. Authorization of temporary co-ownership. I looked up at him. "You tried again, didn't you?" "It's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like." I closed the envelope and handed it back. "You still don't understand, Marcus. I'm no longer the woman who signs without reading." He was silent, then exploded. "This has all gone to your head. The project, the house." I cut him off calmly. "No, Marcus. What's risen is the truth. And it's heavy for those who've lived off lies." He stormed out, slamming the door. When I told Samuel, he simply said, "Now we know how far he's willing to go. We'll protect you on every front." In the days that followed, we finalized everything, registering the Blue House name, drafting the foundation's charter, and adding clauses for asset protection. Everything legitimate, everything public. No space left for doubt. Then Samuel suggested something else. "Evelyn, have you considered a preventive will?" "Yes." "Do you want to leave the house to the project officially?" "I do." "Then neither blood nor surname will ever have power over what's yours." I signed with steady hands. Samuel smiled, proud. "It's done. The house now belongs to your cause." Nora, emotional, took a picture of the moment, and I thought, if anyone ever tries to erase my name, they'll have to erase the history of every woman this house has sheltered. But I knew Marcus wouldn't stop. Days later, the messages began. Tanya sent voice notes. "You'll regret this. He's your son. How can you be so cold?" I deleted them all. True power is knowing what doesn't deserve a response. That Sunday during breakfast, Nora showed me her phone. "Look, they're talking about the project on local TV. The headline read, 'Blue House, where silence becomes voice.'" I smiled. It felt as if time itself was telling me to keep walking, without fear. That afternoon, Samuel arrived with another folder. "Everything's ready, documents secured, records filed. If he tries anything, the law stands with you." "Then let him come," I said. "But he'll have to come clean." He looked at me with quiet pride. "You know what impresses me most about you?" "What's that?" "You've learned to use the same silence that once hurt you as your shield." I looked out the window at the setting sun. Golden light touched the blue scarf hanging by the frame. "Samuel, I've learned that those who don't understand the value of silence..." I turned to him and finished, end up shouting into the void. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Against disrespect, planning. Against fear, documentation. Against the past, dignity." And I slept peacefully, because the counterattack was already underway, not made of revenge, but of preparation. The first call came early, before the sun touched the magnolias. A reporter asked for my comment on anonymous accusations against the Blue House, allegations of hidden assets, misuse of donations, personal gain. I took a slow breath and asked her to send the files. Within minutes they arrived. Flimsy spreadsheets, fake seals, and a PDF where our logo had been clumsily pasted. Samuel read in silence, jaw tight. "They're forged," he said. "Real data mixed with lies. Who could access this information?" I didn't say the name, I only thought it. That afternoon, the City Hall would hold a public hearing on partnerships with community projects. Blue House was on the agenda, exactly where the rumors could strangle us, in broad daylight. I decided to attend, not to defend myself, but to show the truth. Samuel prepared a thick binder with records, receipts, meeting minutes, the Foundation's charter, and the will that safeguarded the house as our permanent headquarters. Nora brought color-coded folders. Claudine organized a line of women who'd asked to speak. "If they're going to hear us," she said, "they'll hear many voices. You won't be standing alone." The municipal hall looked like a church without an altar. High ceilings, wooden benches, microphones buzzing. I recognized faces, some allies, some skeptics, some there just to watch. Marcus stood by the wall, eyes tense. Tanya in a pale dress, phone raised to record. My grandson's behind her, smaller than I remembered. I felt each heartbeat, but also the solid weight of the chair beneath me. Samuel whispered, "Breathe. Truth walks slowly, but it arrives." I touched the blue scarf, my reminder of who I was when others forgot. The panel gathered. 2 councilmen, the social services director, the city attorney. "We'll discuss the Blue House partnership and the complaints received," one announced. The word complaints cracked through the air like lightning. The first to speak was a man too confident for someone searching for facts. He waved a stapled report and implied conflicts of interest. Samuel requested the floor to call for due diligence. I stayed silent. Silence, I'd learned, isn't absence. It's strategy. I let them talk. Let suspicion run its short circle. Then I stood. My name is Evelyn Brooks. What I inherited wasn't a house. It was the duty to never repeat the silence that almost destroyed me. I displayed the foundation's charter, public bank statements, receipts, signed meeting notes, the letter of intent filed months earlier. These are the dates, the stamps, the names. And here, I lifted another folder, are the files we received today. Collages, digital smudges, cloned seals. We'll submit them for forensic review. Before anyone shuts me out of the conversation, hear us. The room quieted. Even the microphone hum seemed to pause. I called Nora. She projected the original spreadsheet, small donations in, verified expenses out, an emergency fund. Then she placed the forged version beside it, broken formulas, misaligned watermarks. "This," she said evenly, "is a fabrication, and whoever did it knows exactly where our drawers are." The attorney requested a copy. Samuel handed over sealed drives. Then Claudine walked to the microphone. "I'm a neighbor. I saw that house light up when half the street was in darkness. These accusations smell like fear. Fear of women who learn to stand tall." One by one, the women spoke. The teacher who stopped an eviction after learning to read contracts. The widow who reclaimed her repossessed car. The hairstylist who opened her own bank account without her ex-husband's permission. With every story, Blue House ceased to be a building. It became people, dates, voices, pages. When the director asked for complete transparency, Samuel requested the projector again. He showed Alma Jefferson's will, the notarized registration of the property as the foundation's headquarters, and my own will donating it to the institution. "Neither blood, nor coercion, nor blackmail," he said, "can undo this." That's when the back door slammed. Marcus walked in like someone crossing an abyss. He asked to speak. The chair of the session allowed it. He hesitated, opened a thin folder. "I came to make this right." Tanya gasped, phone trembling. He placed papers on the table, the same evidence that had spread online. Then from his pocket, he pulled a flash drive. I made it. I forged it." The air changed. Benches creaked. Tanya muttered, "No." My grandsons shrank into their seats. Marcus went on, voice frayed. "I wanted to destroy the project, force my mother to share the house. I thought I deserved it. I thought the world owed me. I was the one who shut that door on her. And today I tried to do it again, this time on paper." He bowed his head. "My fault. All of it." The city attorney spoke quietly, requesting an official investigation. Samuel watched, composed. I walked to the microphone, not quickly, but with purpose. "I could use this moment to crush my son publicly," I began, "but destruction is the language of the lost. I came to speak another, responsibility." I turned to the panel. "Let the process run. Let the experts verify. Blue House will keep opening its doors. We are not hostages of anyone's mud." Then, to the audience. "And may no woman mistake forgiveness for surrender. Forgiveness is a path, not a chain." Donna Clarice, once timid, raised her hand. "I came here once apologizing for existing," she said. "Now I ask this to go on record. This house saved my life. If teaching women their rights is a crime, then arrest us all." Laughter, applause, people standing. The gavel banged for order, but the real order had changed. A city finally listening to those who'd been told to speak softly. The attorney announced the measures: confiscation of the false documents, digital forensics, and a formal cooperation agreement with Blue House, subject to an independent audit, which we immediately accepted. Samuel nodded. A justice of the peace attending another item on the agenda asked to speak. "I don't usually step outside my duties," he said, "but today I saw something this city needs, the kind of justice law alone can't deliver. Mrs. Brooks, you've turned injury into service." Marcus took one step toward me. I braced for begging, excuses, retreat. What came instead was silence. And in that silence, I understood. My role wasn't to save him, but to refuse to drown with him. I untied the blue scarf from my wrist and fastened it around the microphone. It was a small gesture, but my whole body trembled. "This scarf was with me when they called me a failure," I said. "Today it becomes the flag of women who learn to say their own names." The room rose again, applause rolling like a tide. I closed my eyes and saw Alma Jefferson smiling from the place where memory doesn't hurt. Outside, the same reporter waited on the steps. "What's your final statement?" she asked, recorder lifted. "Tell them Blue House isn't about me," I replied. "It's about the right to grow old as someone, not as a burden. And write this: no slammed door decides a woman's fate." Behind her, my grandsons approached, hesitant. "Grandma?" the younger one asked, uncertain. I held them gently, as if cradling glass. "You have a home," I whispered. "This house isn't against you. It's against lies." Marcus stood at the bottom of the stairs, arms hanging, face wet with something that wasn't rain. Samuel leaned toward him, said something I couldn't hear. Tanya disappeared into the crowd, phone off. I knew there would be follow-ups, reports, statements, maybe more whispers. But something larger than paper was already settled. The story itself. That old door slam had lost its power to be my final sound. My city had seen me, whole. That night, Blue House glowed like a lighthouse. The women arrived quietly, bringing kind silence, simple cake, tea. I tied the scarf to the porch rail. It fluttered, asking applause from the wind. We sat in the yard, saying nothing at first. Then Claudine broke the hush. "I told you understanding keeps you alive." We laughed. Nora handed me an envelope, the city's official partnership proposal. "With audit, transparency, and a public schedule," she read. "Just how we wanted it," I said. Later, in Alma's room, I opened the window. Savannah's night hummed with crickets and promise. I touched the frame of an old photograph and felt the warmth of the floor beneath my feet. "We did it," I whispered, to no one and to everyone. In the mirror, I saw the woman who once walked into the rain with a suitcase and a shattered heart. Behind her, another woman stood upright, unshakable. The difference wasn't the mansion, nor the headlines. It was the name learned in full. "Evelyn Brooks," I said aloud, testing the sound. It lingered beautifully in the air. When I turned off the lights, the house breathed with me. There were bills to pay, meetings to plan, legal follow-ups to attend. There would always be noise. But now I had the map. Truth, documentation, community. And above all, something no one could ever steal again. The decision not to live in anyone else's hallway. Before sleeping, I wrote in my notebook, "Today, silence spoke," and everyone heard. I closed the pages and set the pen down, as if sealing a declaration. Outside, the wind lifted the scarf on the porch. Not a miracle, just justice arriving on tiptoe. The days following the hearing seemed to breathe slower. The city still talked, but without poison this time. In the newspapers, the headlines had changed tone. Blue House cleared, estranged son admits fraud and seeks forgiveness. Samuel brought the clippings and set them on the table. "Time has its own rhythm, Evelyn." "And it always arrives," I replied, pouring him coffee. The case against Marcus moved quietly through the courts. He would face justice, but I didn't wish him prison. What I wanted was awareness. The court of conscience. That one has no appeal. Tanya had left with the boys to stay at her parents' home. No note, no goodbye. But the boys called sometimes. They talked about school, soccer, dreams. And when they said, "Grandma," I always answered, "Your house still smells like cake." The Blue House kept growing. New women arrived, some from far away. Some brought letters, others only courage. Nora and Claudine managed everything with the devotion of gardeners protecting new seeds. One day, Samuel called me into the office. "Evelyn, the city partnership's signed. The project now has steady funding. And the audit? Completed. No issues." I smiled. Then what started as refuge has become an institution. Sometimes we had visitors, journalists, students, young lawyers eager to learn from Samuel. But what touched me most were the letters. Letters from women who wrote, "I went back to school. I stopped apologizing. I signed my name for the first time without fear. I kept them all, placed them in a new metal box beside Alma's letters." The story continued, in echo, in voice, in paper. One Saturday, Marcus called. His voice was different, low, restrained. "Mom, may I come by?" I hesitated. "You may." He arrived empty-handed. No arrogance, no excuses. He sat on the porch, the same spot where, long ago, he'd shut me out of his life. We sat in silence for a long while. "I shamed you," he said. "You shamed yourself, son. I don't deserve forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't earned, it's lived." He cried like a child, and I let him. The sound of remorse isn't ugly, it's human. Before leaving, he looked at the house. "You did what no one expected." "I only did what was necessary." He nodded, eyes wet. "You won." I smiled, tired but at peace. "Son, no one wins alone. We rebuild together. Me and every woman who was ever silenced." When he left, the sunset bathed the walls in gold. The blue scarf fluttered on the porch rail. I thought of Alma, of Marjorie, of all the Evelyns the world had pushed out of their own homes. And I felt, with every heartbeat, that I had finally come back inside. That evening, I sat with Samuel, Nora, and Claudine. We drank tea and laughed softly. The wind moved through the house like a quiet prayer. Samuel raised his cup. "To the Blue House. To the courage to begin again," I said. And we toasted. No ceremony, no spotlight, no applause. Just the sound of dignity breathing among us. That night, I slept without flinching. The past, at last, had a place to rest. And the future, for the first time, fit entirely in my hands. It's been 6 months since the hearing. The magnolias have bloomed again, their scent drifting across the porch. Today, the Blue House breathes easily. There are children's laughs, quick footsteps of women who once arrived timid and now walk tall, eyes steady on the horizon. I wake early, make coffee, and open the windows. The sunlight slips in like an old friend, the kind that returns when life makes sense again. In the corner of the living room, the blue scarf still hangs on the banister. I never took it down. It's my flag, my reminder that I was wounded, but never broken. Sometimes I hear from Marcus. He's rebuilding, working at a small office. He says he finally understands what it means to start from nothing, and I hope he truly does, because only those who've crossed the desert know the worth of water. The Blue House has a new wing now, a library and legal resource center for older women. We named it the Alma Jefferson Room, in honor of the woman who took me in when the world shut its doors. On the wall hangs her quote, "Use this house to live, not to hide." Sometimes I sit there alone, watching the sunset through the wide windows. I think of the women still out there, suitcase in hand, hearts caught between fear and hope. And I whisper to myself, "You survived abandonment, Evelyn. Now live so others won't have to survive alone." I breathe in the scent of coffee, hear the laughter coming from the yard, and realize vengeance was never the destination. Respect was. Peace was. Rebirth, always. If you've listened this far, remember, this story exists to prove that time doesn't erase pain. It teaches you to turn it into a path. So I'll ask you this. Have you ever had to start over after being hurt? Share it in the comments. Your voice might be the one another woman needs to hear today. And if this story touched your heart, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that there is still life and justice after rejection. Because sometimes, destiny is just waiting for us to open the right door.